G'day and welcome to the Drivable Podcast, where we discuss all things about driving and safer community transport for people with disabilities and medical conditions. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to our channel and follow us on our socials. Just search Drivable_podcast, Drivable Podcast. We've got heaps of contents now. We've got lots of interviews. Go back and make sure you have a listen to some of our older episodes. There's some real little gems in there for you to gather and put forward in your plan for the future.
Thanks, Brad. How are you going? This episode is going to be a cracker. Hey, everyone. We have John Davey coming up. He's a wonderful character. He's got a great story, so listen carefully. There's a lot of gold there, great attitude. He was basically told by everybody that he can't be driving, and all of these different things that he's doing now, it's not possible. Yet he's doing all of them and many more. But I don't really want to take away much more from the interview, so let's get right into the interview and hear it all from him directly. So Brad, are you ready for it?
Yeah, mate, let's get this started.
Let's get it going.
Driving is something many take for granted, but when someone has altered ability, then driving or getting out and about in your own car can be challenging. Driving with a disability doesn't mean you have to drive an old clapped out car with farm-like machinery, and relying on a wheelchair doesn't mean waiting for hours and then being in the back of a maxi access cab getting car sick. The Drivable Podcast is designed to introduce and explore driving aids for people with disabilities, vehicle modifications, the Ndis, research, medical guidelines, driving techniques, and much, much more. The Drivable Podcast is to help you be informed and be in control of your own independence so you can experience freedom through driving safely and reliably. I'm Ali, and with me is Brad, and together we have over 30 years of experience in disability and driving. Enough of the intros, let's get into it.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Drivable Podcast. We are talking with John today. John, give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are, and then also give us a bit of an introduction about your disability, and then we'll get into the driving side of it all.
John from Melbourne, Box Hill South. I guess one point is I'm an exception that breaks the general rule. Put into context, it was a very interesting birthday week in 2018 in April. I turned 55 on Monday, and by Saturday I was in an induced coma.
I see. What happened there? What was the... Well, was it a big party, or did you drink too much, or what? How big was your 55th?
You'd like to think it was many of those things, but no. Very normal week. Went to work for all of the days except Anzac Day, which was a day off, which was nice. Came home from work Thursday. Very normal. Cooked dinner, as I used to do, or I do again now. Woke up 2:00 Friday morning. So the deep wee hours of the morning, shivering, sweating, couldn't get comfortable. That familiar feeling came on, so I took myself to the bathroom, vomited profusely, went back to bed, felt very ordinary for, well, the majority of Friday. And by about 8:00, after I'd taken myself out of the spare room and decided to go back to the normal bed, the wife looked at me and said, you're not right. So what do you do 8:00 on a Friday evening? Well, luckily Deb rang nurses on call, who were very good. They talked to her, symptoms, etc., put the phone to me, said, it sounds like gastro, bit of a bug going around, you'll be right. Put the phone back to Deb and said, we've called an ambulance. We're not sure what it could be, but, probably just a bug, but best to get him down to an emergency centre and sort him out. So ambulance, sirens, everything was very exciting. I was a little bit not lucid at the time. Got to the emergency centre. The doctors looked at me and just went, yeah, you're not right, are you? There's nothing that we can put our finger on yet, but look, everything's all over the charts. You're not a well boy. Look, we're going to give you a lot of drugs. not sure what it is, but we hope with the drugs we're going to give you, it'll knock whatever it is on the head and we'll find out what it was. But because we don't know what it's going to do, we think we'd probably like to put you to sleep. No, I thought that's a good idea. Give me an anaesthetic, give me the drugs, I'll go home tomorrow, life is good. Well, their idea of a sleep was a 2.5-week coma.
I see.
Turned out that the series of drugs they gave me, bless them, the second dose was a antiviral for a thing called meningococcal. Now, this is where I'm the exception to the rule. If you see all the ads, you see everything in publications. Meningococcal is something that young children get, or teenagers possibly. Well, I'm living proof that adults can get it too. Now, as I said, they sorted out the fact that I had meningococcal after a whole range of drugs, and my body basically shut down, purple welts and open wounds all over the place from my toes to my forehead. And yep, 2.5 weeks later, I woke up and noticed that, well, my feet and my hands were black and not very responsive, because if the meningococcal doesn't kill you, which it can do within 24 hours, unfortunately, septicemia set in. So if you look at my medical records, it says meningococcal septicemia. Now, as I said, if meningococcal doesn't kill you, the septicemia has a little bit of a damaging effect on the fact that it stuffs you around a bit. So through that, I lost both legs and my arms, well, below my wrist, no hands. All a result of the body shutting down. And the body is very clever. It says, send all the good blood to the brain and the heart, and everything else is thrown under a bus. And so progressively in those 2 weeks, my body shut down, my kidneys failed, I had a heart attack. Now, the best place to have a heart attack is in hospital when you're surrounded by doctors. But they pulled me from the brink, but the septicemia tended to make its mark.
And so the mark was the blackened limbs and non-responsive. And they then, once you woke up, did they then tell you that you have to go back under again to have these amputated? Am I on the right track here?
You're on the right track. Unfortunately, the time frame was a little longer than that. It was 5 weeks in ICU to get me strong enough to take me off to another hospital to go on dialysis to get my kidneys back working, a hyperbaric chamber just to see if they could stop the skin dying. They have to wait until such time, and they call it demarcation, when the body decides when it's going to stop dying. And so it got to a certain stage. I said, oh, well, I think you're there now. We're going to take you off below the knees. We're going to take your arms off up to the wrist. I'm a failed below knee amputee because after they took my legs off, they realised that my knees were cactus from a misspent youth. And so I went back in and had the rest of the legs taken off above the knee. And then I think
to what type of level? The rest of the legs, you said, is it mid thigh? Is it right up at the hip? Is it just above the knee?
I'm a bit like the length is strength. I'm above knee, pretty much above knee. Yep. I've still got my thighs, but so 15 or 16 procedures later to close up and to clean up, and I caught some bacterial infections while I was there. So 101 days at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne, off to rehab for 2 weeks, which doesn't sound long, but the problem there is I got another infection, so I had to go back to the Alfred for 4 weeks. And then about 6, 8 weeks at rehab again so I got sick on the 28th of April and I came home on the 21st of December.
Wow. So do you know what causes this?
Well, yes, catching meningococcal. Look, no, it's depending on what statistics you read or look at, there is a percentage of people who carry the meningococcal bacteria dormant in the back of their throat, and obviously not know about it, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get coughed on, or you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, as I apparently was, but what place and what time, we don't know.
Yeah.
So it could have been anything in the week before or the week leading up to. I was just, wrong place, wrong time, and caught the bug.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. It's just.
And life before the bug? What was life before the bug like, John? What were you doing with life, and how?
I was comfortably moving into the stage of becoming a grumpy old man, I think, and happily doing so, because that's, it's a rite of passage. I was working. I've been working, well, almost 30 years in the dispute resolution, negotiation type field. For the last 13 years, I was working as an investigator for a federal government agency. So, look, normal middle-aged stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
When you came out of hospital, what was the adjustment then?
Well, the first adjustment was it took 3 days for my wife to convince me that I wasn't in Sydney or Canberra. For some reason, that's where I was. I knew I was somewhere, but Deb finally convinced me. She said, remember when you came down to the hospital because you were sick that time? Oh, yeah, that was ages ago. Yeah, no, that was 3 and 4 weeks ago, and you're still here.
Yeah.
So the adjustment of one, working out where I was, that was, that it came, it went. I realised, of course, okay, I'm in hospital and, a bit of a mess. But look, if you talk about an adjustment or when the penny dropped or what have you, look, very early in the piece at ICU, Deb and I talked about, look, the fundamental premise is shit happens. It's happened to us. How are we going to deal with it?
Mm.
Fundamentally, there's 2 ways you can deal with any type of shit that goes on. Can I say that on your podcast? I'm not
You
sure.
sure can. You sure can.
Good.
Absolutely. Yep. We're not censored.
Look, it's very simplistically, there's 2 ways you can go. Now, you can either become the victim and say, why me? Whose fault is it? Who can I sue? Why? You question all sorts of things. And I personally feel that if you go down that track, after a while, you'll probably just be in a fetal position in bed, and you don't want to get up in the morning, and that leads to all sorts of terrible and dark thoughts and measures. So the other way, of course, is, well, shit's happened. How are we going to deal with it? Well, one hurdle at a time. What do we need to do to get out of where we are and what we're doing? So every step of the way, we just looked at as the next hurdle.
Mm.
So.
Interesting. So did you always, do you feel that you always had that general outlook? Like, was that personality in general, or did this shock change in your personality?
Well, probably not. And a lot of people have said, oh my goodness, we couldn't have handled it the way you have and whatever. And I said, well, you don't know.
Yeah.
I actually believe you probably can and do. Again, it's that thought process, go down or up. I think anybody probably will handle it. But you're put in that situation, and maybe it's always been a personality trait. I don't know, but I sometimes talk about people saying, oh, well, I shouldn't sweat the little stuff because, what will happen if something terrible happens? And I said, well, no, you should sweat the little stuff, but in proportion.
Yeah.
If you've got this deadline for work, if you've got a paper to a report to make or whatever, sweat on it, but be proportionate. Don't lose your stuff because of that, because one day your legs might fall off. And the way you handle little stuff may be an indication of the way you'll handle the bigger stuff when it comes.
Yeah.
So in your recovery journey,
journey,
when did driving actually become part of the picture? When did it hit home that driving might be affected? And when was it something that you decided to do something about?
And were you always kind of into cars? Because you sent us a photo, which we'll put up online, of like a nice older car. So are you like a car enthusiast or something?
Oh, look, I've always enjoyed driving. I love cars, yes. As an enthusiast, I'm probably not. I'm, again, midlife crisis in my mid-30s. I bought a 1966 Datsun Roadster because that was just, for me, the ultimate in, midlife crisis cars, which I had for 25, 30 years. And again, didn't spend enough money on it when I should have. And finally, when I did and got all the rust cut out and put in a brilliant sound system, and then had the engine worked on, took it for a drive one weekend, and again the next weekend my legs fell off. So, when did the penny drop with regard to driving? Look, probably we go back one step. While I was in the ICU, I had a whole lot of doctors visiting, of course, and they called in a specialist who looked at me and kind of, as he was walking past, said, "He'll never walk again." To which my wife, bless her, stopped him, looked at him and said, "You will not tell me what my husband can and cannot do. That's my job." Which is pretty fair enough. So, again, this positive, if you want to call it that, attitude with regard to, it's not what I can't do. I will try to do whatever I need to do to achieve my normal. And I don't classify myself as disabled. I'm differently abled. I still try to achieve my norm, and to do that, I do the normal things, but in a different way. So achieving whatever is normal, I go about it in a different way now. So when it came to things like driving, or the thought of, will I ever drive again? One thing I realised very quickly is I probably won't get back into a two-seater 1966 Datsun Roadster without power steering, manual transmission. No, I'll never drive that car again. So I sold it. I tried to sell it. Sold it, used the money to buy my current vehicle, which I started formulating what kind of car I wanted while I was still in hospital. It had to be, obviously, something that I could drive. So automatic. Never really liked automatics, but I'm now driving an automatic. It needed to fulfill my dreams of driving. It had to be convertible. So I have that wind in my lack of hair still. And I looked at a few different vehicles and came across the Mercedes CLK, which is a two-door, but very wide doors. So I can open to a 45-degree angle. I can get a chair up to it. Given it was, at the time, one of the high-end Mercedes, it had automatic everything. So this is back in 2004, mind you, the car was made. Automatic wipers, automatic headlights, automatic roof. All the things I thought that I could probably, use and to my advantage. And then, of course, get it to the right people to get it converted so I can actually drive it.
Did you go through all of those decision-making aspects about the car by yourself? Are these all things that you did by yourself, or did you have help through maybe an OT or another car modifier at that stage to help you make decisions about the car?
No, at that stage I was formulating all of this in my head. I had a lot of time in hospital, 8 months in hospital lying around doing nothing until I got to rehab. But you have a lot of time to think, and so it was a good challenge, I thought, for me to work out what it was going to be. At one stage it was going to be a Jeep Wrangler. Again, you can take the top off and it's solid, and it's a very simple car. Too simple. And not very safe. So, no, all of those thoughts were kind of, these are the things I wanted. I needed to have this, this, and this. By the time it came to buying one, I had talked to an OT, and he did suggest that, well, the age of the car might be a problem with regard to NDIS, as in the modifications, but we sold it to the NDIS given the fact that it was, in its time, very much advanced with regard to its automatic windscreen wipers, headlights, this, that, and the other, and readily convertible for my needs.
Mhm.
And
So how can I just ask on a technical level, what did you do to sell it to the NDIS? What specifically do you think that you did?
Well, with regard to the modifications or the money for the modifications, now, as you would know, and I guess people who watch this realise that NDIS is a very good, in principle, it's a sensational scheme, okay? But the basic premise is they won't buy you a new house, but they will help modify your existing house to make it livable. They won't buy you a new car, but they will, hopefully, pay for modifications so you can drive it. So I purchased the car. I had an OT driving instructor who put me back in the car when I was able to, and got my license back within 6 weeks. And it was in the process of then going to the NDIS saying, well, this is the vehicle, a standard NDIS application, if you like. These are the reasons, these are my goals, this is what I want to do, this is what we need to do to get there. And it worked.
So did that go through like first go, or in terms of convincing them? Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm asking more about this is this is a general bit of feedback that could help a lot of people with their applications, is because one of the issues, as you just mentioned, is the older cars. And so tips and tricks on how to sell your older car to the NDIS, if they do ask those questions, would be good. So I guess, yeah, what did you specifically have to do? Like, did you write them anything further, or did they just accept it first go? Like, was there a good justification there?
Well, look, the first tip would be get yourself a good OT. Speak softly and carry an OT. They've hopefully gone through this process many times. They know what the NDIS like and what they don't like. Again, the age of the car thing was raised in passing, in as far as, you do know there are certain, limits with regard to the age of a car. Now, I'm not sure if we convinced them per se, but I had a very low mileage Mercedes-Benz. 2004 model, so it was just, I think, a bit older than they would prefer. But the longevity of that kind of vehicle, the fact that it was pristine in, every respect, it had less than 80k on the clock, which is not even, run in for a Mercedes. Yeah. We just presented the facts as they were. No, this car will last me another 10 years or what have you. This car is what it is. It's a very good example of that vehicle. The report from the mechanic before I bought it, I had it done thoroughly. The roadworthy came through without any problem. No, I can't say that we had any major kickback from the NDIS.
So what you've done though is you've gone to the nth degree in providing all the information up front. So that's really good, because in terms of getting those mechanic reports, those justifications, those little bits and pieces, those details, which I think a lot of people might miss on and will cause them to jump over those hurdles. But having a thought about that and demonstrating to them first up that, hey, look, here's the evidence that this vehicle is a good vehicle that is going to last these 10 years. Yeah, it probably meant that, it was just a passing mention rather than a huge barrier, which can...
Well, exactly right. And look, a good OT will know this and have done or gone through the ringer with the NDIS previously. Now, the first couple of attempts, they might have had arguments or issues. Like any, we all love a good process. And like any good process, once you know what and how, and again, a good OT will know these. I don't think they're tricks. They are just, this is how we cover all bases. These are the boxes we need to tick. And yes, they might question the age of the car. Well, we'll present them with the fact that this car is of such a standard that they're reasonable sometimes. Common sense sometimes does prevail.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, John. And you've pointed out that you have covered all of the bases. So the NDIS do have guidelines, but they do have a list of other things that you need to do if you have a vehicle that is older than 5 years and older than 80,000 kilometers. Then they've got a tick box process that you have to work through. And one of those are NRMA or RAA or wherever you live, the local RACV, whichever state you're in, the local automobile authority, doing one of their safety checks, and then also a mechanic's report, and also that other evidence that it's in really good order. That's a really good piece of advice coming from this interview. So thank you for sharing that journey with us, John.
And I'll just highlight a couple of bits around that as well, I guess, because this is a theme that's commonly come up in previous interviews. The good OT seems to be a regular theme. So basically, like an OT that when we say good OT, the word good is subjective. So the idea behind the good OT, and I guess in our podcast, is someone who knows what they're doing in this industry and is not blindly, going, oh yeah, I can prescribe this stuff, when they haven't really done the proper, due diligence and education. And the other thing which is really interesting to me is this common theme of preparing and reading the documents and reading the guidelines, because it's really interesting. There's all this general negative media about how hard it is to get through NDIS and how hard these barriers are, and they keep telling no, and you see these themes. But then when we interview people, the people that have taken the time to read everything, like there's a lot of people like yourself that have said, yeah, no, we had no problems, no barriers. We just did everything they asked, and we read the guidelines, and we presented everything they needed, and they ticked it off. And so I think that's a very big thing to highlight, is you are getting free money, I guess, in a way, from the government. You are getting money from the government. They don't want to give away money for nothing, for free. They want to justify that. And they've got a clear set of procedures and processes. And I guess if you do your research and understand that process, then you're going to work with them rather than against them, and that's a real good, I think, highlight to have.
Yeah, look, one of the issues with the NDIS is, look, it is a bureaucracy. It's a federal government department. Now, sadly, for all my sins, the last 15 years of my working life, I worked for a large or medium-sized government bureaucracy. I knew what to expect. Now, the big difference, though, is I can advocate for myself. And I'm not scared, embarrassed, or ashamed to do it. There are a lot of people, unfortunately, though, who can't. Mm-hmm. Now, they're reliant on third parties, and sometimes the third party they're reliant upon is a person who may have 5, 10, or a dozen other third parties who they are working for or working through. And then you get to the stage where, are they actually advocating for me as strongly as they could? And, as I said before, I don't classify myself as disabled, differently abled, thank you very much. But I'm not shying away from, there are people who, sadly, aren't able to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
So the point there is not only just getting a good OT, but making sure you get the best advocacy that you can through a person who is going to go to bat for you.
Yeah. That's actually another common thing. Things like, the mums or the families, or just people around you that are battling for you and supporting you when you don't have that voice. So kind of like having that team around you.
I'll just drag people's attention to a previous podcast that we've done with Natalie Wade as well, from a lawyer who is in the disability space. So if you need to go back and listen to that episode, make sure you do, because she really highlights that advocacy side of things as well. And if things aren't going well, where to go to next to get that support that you need. So make sure that you go back and search for the Natalie Wade episode if you're tuning into this one and go, geez, I wish I had some more support in this area.
So let's get into the driving. Tell
us
the driving, how you came about the controls and bits and pieces and so on.
Driving always part of the plan. Again, things I can do, nothing can stop me from those things. Through a fellow quad amp, I was put in touch with an occupational therapist / driving instructor, Nick Marshall, was from OT Solutions. Brilliant bloke here. He met with me. We talked about my goals, etc., which was get me on the road. And he looked and thought, well, okay, there is a couple of obvious things missing at the moment, your legs and your hands. What kind of controls could we look at, what we can do? He went about his research, as he does, came back a couple of weeks later in his Golf with, I've got this idea. If you look at my car, it looks like it's got too many coffee cup holders. So he thought, we can put, instead of the universal golf ball on the steering wheel, which I couldn't use, he goes, why don't we put your stump into a cup or a whatever you want to call it, which was great. So we went away and actually had a series of cups, not 3D printed. They were actually, I don't know where they were made in Italy. And whatever process they went through was, exacting and brilliant. And he came to me 2 weeks later and said, look, I've got these, they're brilliant. Now, I think maybe because they were made in Italy, the coffee cup holder type device that we got was actually, unfortunately, the size of a espresso coffee cup. If I had thumbs, I couldn't get them into it. It was no way known. So we went to he went to another manufacturer and got these cups made up. You guys would know more of the technical details with regard to my Go Fast stick that I use and my stop stick. But it works really well. I've got a coffee cup holder on my steering wheel, which I put a stump into. I've got my Go Fast stick on the right-hand side, which I put my stump into a coffee cup holder, and pull down for go fast and push forward for stop.
So just to unpack that a little bit for our listeners, if you want to see this, please go and have a look at our show notes. We'll share some photos that John has thankfully shared with us, so it'll make a little bit more sense. It is basically a customized spinner knob, which John puts the end of his stump into on the steering wheel. And it literally looks like a coffee cup holder, but you wouldn't want to put a coffee cup in it because the coffee would be all over your lap. It actually faces him on his steering wheel. And then the other one is a hand control. So his Go Fast stick or Go Slow stick is a hand control. And he's got another one of those positioned on the hand control to make the car go forwards and stop. John,
how do you push pat then? That would be push pat. Yeah. And is it do you know which brand it is?
Yeah, no.
I do. I've seen the photo. It looks like an e-radio, which may have been supplied through PME or Guido Simplex, going by the pictures there, John. But it's electronic. Is that correct?
Yes, it's electronic in as far as the Go Fast part.
Mm-hmm. And then
it's actually mechanically connected to the brake pedal,
yes.
Which is a nice feel in itself. You can actually feel the pedal going down through your arm.
It's probably, my guess is it's probably Guido Simplex if they're making the adaptations in Italy, because Guido Simplex is out of Italy, and I know OT Solutions work with PME and guys a fair bit. So but that's great. It's I mean, we just wanted to break down the technicals so other people know what we're talking about in terms of the hand control type. So learning how to use it, I guess, and getting all that, how was that?
Oh, look, my first trip was very slow. It was, a year, probably 18 months since my legs fell off, that I'd got in a car and I was in control of it all by myself, albeit with Nick by my side controlling things if they went wrong. Look, it was scary. It was brilliant, but there's some sweating going on. But I had a fortnightly lesson. So every 2 weeks, Nick would come up, we'd get the car going. By the end of it, I was driving for an hour and a half without any issue at all. And he said, well, normally I'd suggest we go to retest for your license after X amount of lessons or what have you. But look, I'm actually going on leave. I'm taking a couple of weeks off. So when we should have been doing, I'm not going to be here. Do you want to do it next week? Oh, okay. So I think I had 4 lessons in the car and took my test and passed. I was criticised for not merging onto a freeway fast enough, which back in the day wouldn't have been the case. So, there's lessons to be learned. But no, look, it's an unbelievable feeling to be able to touch that level of independence. The process hasn't finished yet, because at the moment I drive in ever-increasing circles because I don't have a wheelchair that I can actually put in the car.
This was one of my questions. You mentioned it earlier. You've got a big wide door, enough to be able to get the wheelchair nice and close. So I'm assuming that you do a somewhat of a slide transfer from wheelchair to car seat.
Another reason for the car choice was the level of the Mercedes seat is at the same level as my wheelchair, my power chair, and most other chairs. So I just slide across. Yeah, no slide board required.
Do you have prosthetics at all?
I do. I have a set of very good-looking legs that I can walk on now, which is great. Except I'll never be able to drive with them.
Have they got knee joints?
Well, yes, but given my level of upper limb lacking, I won't be able to drive with legs, and that's fine because I don't need to. I also have a set of bionic arms. Part of the process I went through at the Alfred was I was part of a program for a 2-prong approach. It's called TMR, and they actually take every nerve they can find from the bits they're about to take off and reinsert them into the muscles, into my forearm or what have you. And again, I said two reasons. The theory with phantom pain and amputees is that if you don't do something with the nerves, they continue to grow. But if they're not doing anything, they get very angry and they mutate, and they think that might cause phantom pain or be one of the causes. And the other aspect of it is my thumb or my fingers and all the nerves from there sitting into my forearm mean that I can put on a bionic device which picks up the signal from my brain, and with a very, very clever computer, turns out that I can now manipulate my fingers. So I'm back in the kitchen.
Wow. Yeah, that's wonderful stuff. And look, there's a lot of people that would want to try out their prosthetics for driving. Is that ever been something that's passed through your head in regards to the hand controls or that coffee cup spinner knob that you've got?
Yeah, well, we'd have to change the coffee cups, for sure. Look, no, in as far as much as I'm happy at this stage, again, it's only been a couple of years, with my manipulation of my bionic hands, I don't think I'd like to have it connected to a steering wheel and then the other hand onto my Go Fast stick, because as good as my control might be, it's not foolproof. And I kind of threw my mind going through, if I'm making a big turn on a hairpin and all of a sudden my arm falls out of the socket, I've got this device sitting off my steering wheel and I don't know where I'm going. So no, it's not something that I don't need to, because what I've got works perfectly.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important point, is that it needs to work reliably. And yes, you might be able to use your prosthetics to make the Go Fast stick work, but you also need to be able to do it reliably, and that's where an OT can help you discover those type of things. But we take your own advice as well, because you know your body better than anyone else, John.
It's actually a good point to raise also, because one of the things that we mentioned before is there's a lot of new products and a lot of fancy products coming in, and people can emotionally get kind of wooed by those products and want all the latest fandangled stuff, because we've seen that a lot when people come in, especially when it's NDIS funding. In their mind, they might think, oh, we're getting a little bit of an extra freebie, so they'll go, I'll give me this extra option or this option, and because it just looks good and fancy, but it's actually can be cumbersome and not suitable. So yeah, it's also important to raise.
John, at the moment you said you drive in ever increasing circles. do people have to meet you wherever you are with your wheelchair? Have you returned to work or those type of things, or?
Yeah, no, I haven't returned to work at this stage. I'm on extended leave. I think I'm semi-retired. I just don't think I've realised that yet. Look, when we go out into public or into the environs, if my partner's not with me, we have a lightweight TI chair for being in the public, and Deb pushes me around, or I self-propel, but it folds the wrong way, and it's too big to get into the car, and it's too cumbersome to lift over my body to put into the seat. So no, I'm good at drive-throughs. I drive for my own pleasure. You said ever increasing circles, as I did, but with lockdown, I've got the 5 kilometre run down pretty pat. And look, yeah, that's I'm limited at the moment, because when I get to somewhere, I either have to have a coffee in the car or meet somebody and we sit and talk, or we go for a drive. So
can I just unpack this a little bit? We're hopeful that some NDIS delegates listen to this.
Mm.
How important is driving to you, even though when you get to a location, you actually can't get out of a car at this stage? Try and unpack that for us so people understand why that's still important, even though that solution of getting a wheelchair in and out of the car at this stage hasn't been met.
Well, look, there are two aspects to that. The driving aspect, me being able to, at the moment I need assistance. I drive my power chair to the car, get in, and my poor long-suffering wife removes the power chair out of the way so I can go. But once I go, I can go.
You're free.
I'm driving. I'm free. I'm driving. I'm doing something that I love doing. I'm doing it in a different way, but I'm still doing it. And that in itself, that level of independence, it was a goal from day one. We talk about our NDIS plan and our goals and this and that or whatever. It was always to get back into a car. So that was a goal from before I left hospital, and it's still in my plan, because every now and then I need a reversing camera for that car. Thank you, NDIS. I paid for that. So just the independence and the feeling of being able to do something that everybody else thought would not happen, or you might have not thought was possible, I'm there. So that in itself is a huge, well, not an achievement, but I've met that goal. Now,
I think it can build momentum as well to
do anything else. It's not what I can't do. It's what I can do and how I need to go about to do it.
Yeah.
And I would suggest to anybody else who's thinking about it, or it's a bit too hard or what have you, no, have a go. If something that you enjoy doing, unpack it, as you say. Look at all the aspects of what it is you want to do to be normal, but what tool or what help or what device you might need to be able to achieve that. You'd be surprised if you look through it and you get the right help. There are all manner of things that you might thought you could not do that you can. And if it's purely for enjoyment, there's nothing wrong with that either. So the fact that I drive in circles because I can't get out of the car, well, that's going to be rectified. We went back to the NDIS quite promptly and said, well, you've been nice enough to give me all this money to get into a car. Thanks very much. And I can drive it. That's awesome. But that's all I can do. I need a new chair, and you've already paid for 2. Thank you very much. But they don't meet my needs. It's not fit for purpose. So we're getting a RGA Tigger FX wheelchair. It's been scripted. It's been made as we speak in England somewhere. That chair is so light and so compact. Once you take the wheels off and fold it up, it actually fits into overhead luggage in a plane.
Wow. Cool.
Now the wheels don't. Oh, no, they don't. But the frame itself does. So that's how compact it can fold into, and it's as light as. So I have no trouble at all lifting it across my body, putting it in the passenger seat.
I'm just putting my OT hat here on.
Yeah.
How do you get the wheels off?
Well, you'd know most wheelchair wheels have, you push the button
In the middle. Yep.
So I tip a wheelchair on its side.
Yep.
And press it.
Yep.
Pull it up. Put it in the car.
Yeah,
Right?
and you can do that without because for most it would be the thumb action, and sticking
most,
their fingers around the
for those that have
the
them,
wires. Yes, that's right. So,
but no, I managed to do it with just a standard push button,
Excellent.
if you want to call it. But no, it gets better. When we were scripting my chair, the OT or the wheelchair expert, Tony, said, "Oh, would it be better if we had a little tab on it, so you could just push the tab, which unlocks the wheel."
Beautiful.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So little tips like that, and again, you talk to the right people, you get the right advice, and they say, "Oh, we had a similar thing. We did this." Brilliant. So when I get the chair in the next few weeks, Christmas we hope, that will the level of independence and my being able to get into the car by myself, out of the car by myself. It might take some time in the first few weeks, but I can now go up the shops instead of taking my power chair and going up the shops. I'll drive.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I reckon that leads us into our final question, Ali. What do you think?
That's what I was thinking. It's a great way to finish it up. And last message. So, yeah.
So we asked this to all of the people that we interview, and we would like you to answer this one's about when you got your license, from the time when you got your license back. We know that cars are more than just getting from A to B, and for you, it's from A to A around in a circle sometimes. But what is something that you do in your car now, or something you've done in the recent past that's a little bit unusual or a little bit fun that you'd like to share with us?
I guess it's not something that I've done. I think it's something that I can't do, and I've told my friends if they see me driving down the road, and don't think I'm being rude if I don't wave.
Yep.
So I don't wave. To press the horn.
Mm-hmm.
So I was never an aggressive driver as such, but there were times where I might have done the horn thing to somebody who was giving me the shits. So, and that's an automatic thing. You get angry, you press the horn. Now, all my indicators, windscreen wipers, and the horn and the lights are connected to a button in my headrest. And it's just a process whereby I hit it once and the headlights go on high beam. I'm not sure why they put that as number 1. Number 2 is left. Number 3 is right. Number 4 is the horn. Now, by the time I get angry at somebody and I've gone through that, they're either gone or the moment's passed. And so I don't use my horn either as much as I sometimes like to.
Anger management class. They've helped you with your anger management.
I don't need it anymore because, the technology has defeated me with regard to anger horn management.
John, absolute pleasure to talk to you. And like I said previously, you've shared some photos with us, and we're going to put those photos up as part of the show notes, so you can actually look at the coffee cup holders that you use for the Go Fast stick, your hand control, but also for the spinner knob to make the steering wheel turn. And then you've also shared a picture of your headrest as well, which houses the buttons for being able to do your indication and put your lights on and do your horn if you get that far down the track.
Well, that's right. For the eagle-eyed viewer as well, if you put that picture in, you'll notice that the key fob is actually in my armrest between the seats.
I noticed that, actually.
Yeah. Because one of the things we, going through trial and error is to try to get a Mercedes key fob or any key fob into a little hole behind the steering wheel. Takes more dexterity than I think a black belt in yoga could do. It's just something they we can change that. So I now start it's like a Saab, the keys in the middle of the car, So little touches like that, the experts are able to, Independence Automotive, down at Carrum Downs. I'd suggest to anybody in need. Really good at their job. Anything that came up as a problem, they seem to have a solution or thought of one. So yeah, little things like that.
Yeah, they're actually. I know Ryan really well. He's a really good as well. So and extremely talented. I've never seen anyone the way that those guys work. The stuff that they've created. Really awesome. So
well, look, one of the first things I said to them was, "We'll do what you need to do, but it's a really nice car, and I don't want to have all these sorts of bits and bobs hanging out, so it just looks ridiculously slapdash." There's 3 buttons beside the gear selector that do certain things. There's the changed fob. There's all these other things they've put in place, and you would look in my car and say, "Oh, what's out of place here?" Other than the coffee cup holders. Yeah. So no, brilliant work.
Yeah, no, they're good.
All right,
Good,
John.
Thank you very much, John.
Yeah,
no,
John,
my pleasure, gentlemen.
Great pleasure talking to you. For our listeners, hang around. What we're going to do after the short break is Ali and I are going to unpack some of the things that we learned from John. But John, thank you very much for joining us. And it was a great pleasure to talk to you. Drive safe. And thanks very much once again.
No, my pleasure. And take care, all of you.
All right, cheers. We'll see you next time.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is the part of the podcast where Ali and I break down what was discussed with our guest. Today we had John, and John talk through his quadruple amputations and how he drives with hand controls and the meaning that has for him, how much meaning getting out and about in his car, even if he can't get his wheelchair in and out at this stage. But what the meaning of that actually is to be able to be independent and go for a drive and be by himself in his car. And I thought we should start there, Ali, about that meaning of being in a car.
Yes, it's really interesting actually, because when he was talking about that, it's a part of I guess this whole NDIS thing that is quite challenging to kind of quantify sometimes, particularly in the like from a mathematical point of view and justification point of view. It's interesting though, something that I've been thinking about, and it's actually related, which depending on when this thing comes out may not be sort of relevant, but we are like right now in Sydney, I'm in a lockdown, right, and have been for about 6 weeks. And compared to the last time we were in a lockdown, the sentiment is a lot lower and people are a lot more negative. And so business is doing a lot tougher. And in the first one, the government, because it was a nationwide lockdown, the federal government came through with like this JobKeeper thing, and they had a solution for everyone. So people were positive in general. And when people are positive and they have a positive outlook, then their mind is free to do things and contribute positively towards community, right? The community can thrive. And we saw that economically within our community straight after the government put in this process. And now what we're seeing in Sydney in particular, because it's not a federal thing and they don't have this kind of JobKeeper thing, the economy of Sydney is massively going down, whereas last time it didn't. And so I guess that was what I was thinking when he was mentioning this thing and the meaning of that, and having that ability to go out, just have that mindset of positivity, that then leaks into all parts of your life and into your community and benefits your community, and has a massive financial benefit, just like I could demonstrate with this whole COVID thing, like it's really interesting.
Yeah, we're hoping to get Angela Burnt on and to talk about a study that she did about the impact hand controls has on social inclusion and putting a value on that. So we're really hopeful of getting that in. But just to highlight what John said is that he can go through drive-throughs. So he's giving back to the community by being able to go out, get himself a coffee, go through a drive-through, get a meal, and be part of the community by himself and have that independence and not have to rely on somebody to help him out. And that's something that just shouldn't be overlooked at any stage. And And going right back to one of our very early interviews with Dee, and she talked about an impact statement. And that's where those impact statements are really, really important when you're dealing with the NDIS. That inner meaning, what does it mean to you to be able to do this, to be able to drive, to be able to be in a car? What does it mean to you to be able to do that? And having that emotional side of it, having that inner meaning, that internal why, rather than just a physical why, as in it'll get me to and from work. What else does it mean?
Yeah, I think that's the thing is that from even you could do any research on that. The whole fundamental philosophy, baseline philosophy of the NDIS is around that, is around community, right. Building the community, people being all active within the community. And there is clear demonstrations that when more people are participating within that community, the community is financially better off. It's healthily, it's more healthy. It's thriving in multiple ways by having more people that are there actively operating there. So yeah, I guess that's why I thought it was a really good point. And it's really like, I think that in the future, as NDIS gets more experience, there will definitely be some kind of financial value to that, because I think that's where the big value comes, is that if I'm getting something that means important to me, I can get out there and drive. And even going back to when he was initially speaking about doing his research, what you could tell is he was generally a bit of a car nut. So that's probably why he was enthusiastic about doing this stuff and research. And if people can meet their passions, then they can thrive. I mean, one thing I just thought of was Nick Tiago that we interviewed. You know, his passion is arcade games and the old school things, and he's thriving because he's able to experience that passion, you know, and explore that passion, you know. So those are the key things to really understand.
And think about what that does to your mental health, and then think about what long-term impact that has on, and you were just mentioning about being in lockdown, what long-term impact does that have on the hospital system in regards to that flow-on effect of being isolated in your own home? They're all important things to be considering.
I'm on week 7 of lockdown. It's not cool being. I think that was a really, really big important point to understand.
The other thing that we spoke about, talking about selling it to the NDIS, was he had an older car that didn't meet the NDIS guidelines. But the thing that really came out through the interview was that he ticked all the boxes that NDIS delegates needed to be able to show that his car was worthwhile funding for. Giving the money over to put these modifications in, because it's going to be value for money. And he had all the boxes ticked through his OT and working through that process. Yeah, and
this one thing to actually highlight, because he mentioned about how he has worked in the government before, and so he's got a bit of experience of how it works. And he said something he mentioned something in passing about figure out the process, and that's all it is. And I guess me personally, I've had a lot of experience working with government as well. And generally speaking, it's a process. Like you may not agree with processes they have, but they have a process, and they need to maintain, consistency, almost robotic-like consistency, in order to be consistent with the entire community, the millions of people that are living here. So understanding that philosophy, I guess, and that perspective, and going, all right, I just need to tick those boxes and just really be laser focused on that, seems to be really, like getting the success. But actually what John mentioned in terms of he's lucky because he's got that kind of ability to understand and advocate for himself is also something that we can't discount. And again, as we keep building on this stuff, the people that have got that community around them, the people around them, the friends, the family, the mums, the dads that are advocating, you need to build that team. You know, you need to build that community around you in order to move forward.
Yeah, and if you haven't, then you need to get that in and find those people that can support you. I mean, John highlighted, Nick Marshall from OT Solutions as his OT there. But then he also highlighted his mods team that can did the modifications to his car. Ryan and so forth. They getting that team behind you that does have the experience is vital. And I think that's coming out over and over and over again. We didn't design the podcast to be highlighting that at the start. It was more about sharing stories to motivate people to think about driving and how much does it mean and what type of solutions are people utilizing out there to give people ideas and inspiration. But one of the underlying theme there is make sure that you get the people that know what they're doing and that have got experience in this area so they can help you out.
Yeah, and I guess this whole good OT thing keeps coming up, and yeah, that's really, really important, you know. And we hear it time and time again, I guess, and it's something I guess I want to challenge people out there that if you're butting heads with the OT, if the OT is, you know, creating dramas for you and you're not seeing eye to eye, maybe time to talk to another one. You know, they may not be the right one for you or the right one for this particular product or whatever. So yeah. Do
your research.
Yeah.
Do ask questions before your initial consult. How much experience do they have, or you know, is this the area that they focus in on, or ask those questions. The same as if you're going to get a bathroom quote, you kind of ask those questions and you get that feeling of whether they can help you. Same in this area as well. There's differences between OTs, modifiers, other people that are out there to help. Make sure that you do your research and get the people that are the right fit for you.
Yeah, definitely. So like the way I tend to sort of suggest that is, as I said, it's if you feel like it's just not going in the direction you think it should be going, that's just, one way to do it, one way to ask those questions. It's like, well, this is kind of what I wasn't expecting. This wasn't the path I wanted to go down with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel you're being told what to do. That could be, a bit of a flag as well. So, but the signs that he was mentioning, I thought there were some things there that have also come up in other interviews, which I think signify to you that you're working with someone who's good. So one of the things was this person was going out and doing research on solutions. You know, like they were almost getting excited on various different things I can get for this guy, getting them made and trialed and tested. To me, those are signs that the person is good because they're going and doing their research. They're going that extra mile. Whereas if you go there and they're like, oh, sorry, no, I don't know anything about that. Never seen anything like you. You know, whatever, like we can try this hand control, maybe not, whatever. So the point is you can tell the enthusiasm if the person kind of wants to work with you and develop and try and find those solutions. That's probably a sign that it's a pretty good OT, and that was pretty impressive to me.
Yeah. All right. I think we should we'll leave it there on that note. I think I want to thank John one more time for what he shared, and he's given us permission to get back in contact with him again in the future, and we can unpack the solution about getting in and out of the car and you know, touch base with him about his lightweight wheelchair, and it's just even that little simple tip, hopefully someone might find use out of it, about putting a tab that goes over the button in the middle so he can press it with the end of his stump rather than pressing it with a thumb. That's what we do this podcast for. So hopefully you're getting enjoyment out of it. If you are enjoying it, make sure you press that like button, press the subscribe button, and let us know with some comments and some feedbacks that you're enjoying it. And if you've got some feedback for us, we welcome that as well. So make sure that you hit us up with a message on either the Facebook page, just search Drivable Podcast, and or through the channels, SoundCloud or Google Podcasts or Apple. It doesn't matter where you listen to it. Make sure that you share a note with us. We'll get it, and we'll make sure that we pay attention and give that back.
Good. All right. Thanks very much, Brad.
Yeah, and as we say in every episode, if you have any queries about what you can do and what will work for you, make sure you get in contact with your local OT, your mobility dealer, and set yourself up with a trial, because, as we say in every episode, trials really do put you in the driver's seat. Until next time, see you then. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Drivable Podcast with Brad Williams and Ali Akbarian. If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show notes, or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. Just search @Drivable Podcast for more information.